All right, guys. I don't know if you can see me. It says live, so we'll see. I'm not as good at this as I would like to profess that I am. So let me see if I say something. I'm going to say, hi, everyone. Let me know who is all with me today. All right. Yeah. Hopefully you guys can hear me. And there's no feedback. That sounds really weird. So if there's feedback, guys, that you're hearing, please let me know. And then that way I can tweak that and fix that. I'm going to be very honest with you. This is a different computer that I'm using. So it's like, do I look at this lens? Do I look at this lens? Like, what am I supposed to be looking at? So we'll just do the best that we can. Don't judge me. Victoria Temple's like, hey. Hi, Victoria. I'm just going to put nice to see you on here. So I want to start, guys, just by talking about why this came about today. And I've been planning this for a while. I did cancel it and reschedule it last week. And I did that because of some work-related and personal stuff that came up. So thank you so very much for being patient with me regarding that. Hi, Nikki. Nice to see you here. And then, hi, Felicia. I'm going to try my best not to be distracted. I think that just ADHD. I really do. I can't, like, if you were here to see, like, what all is here, you would know what I mean. Like, there's a camera here, there's a camera down here, and then there's, like, speakers over here and a microphone. I can't, like, keep up, plus the feed. So forgive me. But the reason this live stream came about was I had gotten over 195 emails over the course of 2 days from people all over the world. Okay, and we're talking people who had a problem with the George Floyd protests, people who did not want to see it, people who, I'm getting an email from someone. Hi, Kevin. Go ahead and comment on the live stream if you can. Let me know what you think of today. So somebody was against the outward expression of grief that had been portrayed by many of the individuals protesting during the George Floyd protests. We also had a variety of protests as a result of the, Rayshard Brooks, if I can speak today, the Rayshard Brooks protest as well. We had some individuals who had a hard time with that. They came on my channel and talked about that. Corona is another situation where we, really we're at the mercy of our government. We were at the mercy of the president and our mayors, and, really just trying to figure out, how do we live with this new health concern. And unfortunately, there were different ones that came on my YouTube channel and said, hey, look, we're sick to death of hearing about Corona. I think I'm going to cause some trouble. So there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes for the past 2 months now. And I think it's just the result of heightened anxiety as a result of Corona and the racial and social injustice issues. So I got a lot of emails and a lot of text messages and a lot of streams or streaming messages, I should say, that basically said, hey, look, Tamara, you're a therapist, you're known internationally. Why don't you just talk about what's going on in society and share it with people who are on your channel? So that's what I'm doing today, guys. That's why we're having this conversation. It's been a requested live stream for quite a few months now, but most recently for the past 2 months. So I want to talk about some sociological concepts that I think may be helpful to you in understanding what's going on. So I'm going to start with race and social justice, and then I'm going to end with Corona. And then I want to offer some tools on how to cope with this kind of trauma that we're going through. Okay, I encourage you to, on the stream, go ahead and leave some questions for me if you have any that you would like to ask me. So, all right, guys, so let's just go ahead and jump in, okay? And it looks like I'm having some internet difficulties, so I apologize if you're getting some weird feedback. So there are a couple of concepts that I want you guys to keep in mind when we are thinking about what's going on in our society today. And there's this whole sociological theory known as social control. Okay, it's called a social control theory. And basically, the idea behind that is deviance is usually seen as abnormal. It's usually seen as, not a comfortable thing to engage in society, right? Because deviance means fines and jail and maybe hospitalization, and the list goes on. So there are a lot of people who conform, right? They conform to the norms of society. They don't want to deal with the deviance. In that theory of social control, we have what's known as a social bond theory. Okay, a social bond theory. And that basically says this, that you're less likely to become racist, you're less likely to become prejudiced, discriminatory, you're less likely to become emotionally entrenched in segregation when you are closely tied to your community, when you conform to the norms of your community, whether that's school, church, donations or donating, right? Volunteer work, whatever it may be in society, in that community, whatever's acceptable. Social bond theory says this: if you are socially bonded to those things, then you're less likely to be deviant. And deviance can definitely be under the category and the heading of racism. And it can also be under the category and the heading of prejudice and discrimination. Hi, Frankie. Oh, thank you so much. I miss seeing you on the channel. I'm going to say nice to see you. Hi, Slim Dusty. I definitely love your comments on the channel. Thank you so much. So social bond theory, okay, that's what we need to keep in mind when we're watching protests, we're watching riots, we're watching some of the chaos that we're witnessing across the nation over race and social justice. So you want to keep that in mind. When you are not socially bonded correctly to your society and you take on a deviant mindset, you take on a deviant kind of heart, right? And your soul becomes deviant, whether that's because you learned it from someone that is older than you or went before you, or that's something that you just admire secretly, of course, and you take on those characteristics, whatever it may be. If you're not correctly bonded to your society, then you can become the victim of racism, discrimination, and social injustice. Hi, Ashley. Oh God, I was going to spell your name something totally different. My God, I need a vacation. Ashley, hi, Ashley. Thank you so much. So social bond theory and social control theory. Okay, there's another concept, and within the concept of social bond theory is what's called inner containment theory. Okay, and inner containment theory says this: that as you grow up in the world, when you have children, right, you kind of teach them what they should internalize. You teach them that they should internalize ethics and morals that are fair and that are right and that are appropriate, right? When we take our kids to church, when we take our kids to school, when we take our kids to community events where they have to mingle with kids of different ethnicities and classes and so forth, we're basically teaching them this, that I want you to internalize what it's like to be inclusive, right? I want you to internalize what is socially appropriate. I want you to conform, not conform to where you lose your identity, of course, but where you conform to the point of being able to say, you know what, I need to be inclusive, I need to be loving and giving and caring, and I need to be compassionate. That's the kind of conformity I'm talking about. It's okay to have an independent thought. It's okay to have a different thought, but I think, conforming to the values of society and the morals and the ethics of compassion is what inner containment theory is saying. We want our kids to internalize those things so as they grow up, right, they will not deviate. These are all sociological concepts that I want you guys to keep in mind. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to type them in the description box for you so that you can have a definition of each of these things. But as you're looking at television and as you are processing what's going on racially and socially and as you're processing even the health scare with Corona, which I'm getting ready to jump into, I want you to be able to say, you know what, I do know what's influencing things here. I know what's going on. And we're dealing with a social control crisis, right? These are individuals, and I'm talking about law enforcement who tends to abuse their power, right? That's what I'm talking about. Law enforcement that tends to abuse their power. These are individuals who, unfortunately, may not have a social bond to society. They got into the profession for some reason, and maybe they wanted to help and so forth. But there's a side of them that did not internalize the appropriate values and the appropriate morals. So these are theories that you have to keep in mind as you move forward and you watch what's going on in our world. So let's see, Supernova 26. So nice to see you on the channel. How to handle those moments when you feel this sting of a colleague, client's words, but you're second guessing if it's a microaggression. I'm going to say, thanks so much for this wonderful question. So let me give you a little bit of background on me, and I'm going to answer your question, Supernova. So I'm multi-ethnic, and my family and I, we come from very different walks, right? I have like a huge African-American side of my family. They're like really traditional, culturally traditional African-Americans. But then on my other side of my family, I have multi-heritage. So I have Cherokee, Native American heritages, really intertwined with that kind of upbringing to the point of internalizing their values and their morals. Then I have Caucasian roots as well. And then we have some roots that are really and interestingly from the UK. I thought that was pretty cool when I did the DNA testing for my family. But I grew up in a multicultural household. Like my family was always embracing and loving towards all groups of people. And I always had friends that were different races, right? So I never really grew up in a predominantly one race environment. It was always, my mom was very, very entrenched in being in a different cultural mindset and bringing myself and my two brothers up in that kind of environment. And, she made it a point to make us travel and to make us, learn a different language and to just kind of entrench us again in our various cultures. So when I grew up and I got into the counseling field, and this is to get to your question, Supernova 26, I realized that as being a therapist, I was hit with a variety of different questions. Okay. And some of the questions were, and I'm going to share them with you guys. Okay. So this is my vulnerability moment. Some questions were, oh my God, are you Indian? And my first thought was, yeah, that's part of my heritage, but do we have to talk about that? Like, what's that have to do with counseling? And then, I would get the questions like, are you married? Oh my God, are you married to a Caucasian guy? Because you look like you would be that kind of person who would do that. And I'm like, oh my God, sometimes I would even have colleagues that would say things that, were really kind of offensive. And of course, I had family members who do not have that multi-ethnic upbringing and cultural roots that I did say, hey, look, you're just one race. So don't even try to act better than us. So, those different experiences felt like, as you put it, Supernova 26, microaggressions. And it was really hard for me to digest that because if you're not careful, it can really chip away at your self-esteem. So how do you deal with that? Well, one, I became a little bit more educated to who I was. I think that was very, very important for me. And I entrenched myself in my multi-ethnic culture, and I distanced myself from those who express those kind of microaggressions. If you're dealing with a colleague, however, that's a little bit difficult because you can't escape them all the time. But I think some education for that colleague would be helpful. And I've worked over the past 13 years of my life, I've worked in a variety of capacities in schools and detention centers and camps and juvenile delinquent centers and lower class school districts, and the list goes on. In those different places, I did see a lot of microaggression towards myself from colleagues. And here's what I did. I pulled a colleague to the side one time and I said, you know what, look, I'm going to have to talk to you about this. I don't like some of the things that you say, and I find them hugely, hugely offensive. I like you as a person, but I'm realizing that you lack knowledge in the area of race and culture. And so I really need you to be a little bit more sensitive towards me if you can. And I was hoping that confrontation, so to speak, was not going to create an argument between us. And it did not. It created a really healthy relationship after that. So Supernova, I think pulling a colleague to the side may be helpful. But I also think, with clients, it's a little bit more difficult. It's murkier because you have to be the bigger one. You have to be the more mature one. You have to be the forgiving therapist boundary. I'm licensed. I'm certified. The state has said I'm in charge here. How do I address you? I think I would ask a client, Supernova 26, why is this important to your healing or to your health? Why is this important to your survival that you know about me? Or you can even bring up the fact that they are exhibiting microaggressions. It might be an educational conversation for them. So, that's something that, I think that I would maybe think through, and I would consult with someone who has a little bit more experience. I would ask them about that. That's a tough one. But I think I became, like I said earlier, a little bit more confident learning about myself, pulling people to the side when it was necessary. And then the third thing that I forgot to mention earlier was, I think sometimes it's just not worth you addressing. Move on, right? Like microaggressions, we have to learn to deal with that and manage our own feelings, be mature, and move on. That's the tough part. I hope I answered your question. Let me know in the comment section over here if I totally went off topic and sounded like I was rambling, because I felt like I did. Hi, stay balanced. Thank you for joining tonight. I love your comments, by the way. There's a comment in my comments section, stay balanced, that I did not answer. And that is my fault. So I will answer that, I promise. Nikki says, and then we're going to jump back into this stuff, guys. Nikki says, Tamara, why is people still acting crazy? Oh my God, Nikki. So I met Nikki in person a while ago. Nikki, I hope it's okay if I say that. She's great, straight to the point, loving, embracive. I think she's great. And I absolutely love this comment. She says, Tamara, why is people still acting crazy, like doing protesting and doing other things out there? I get that it is a crisis. Yeah. So I think what you're saying, Nikki, is I get that it's a crisis situation, but why are people out there acting crazy, right? Do I think the protesting is quote unquote crazy, for lack of a better word? Absolutely not. I think protesting has a long, long history in our society. I think I talked about this, excuse me, on this channel. Wish I had some water around. I think I talked about this on this channel, guys, in a couple videos ago, that we have a long, long history in the United States and all across the world of protesting. Protesting is steeped. It is just so entrenched in our cultural history. It's something that we did back in the 1950s and even sooner than that to ensure that we were heard, not just a group of people, but groups of all ethnicities. So, protesting is really, really powerful. I don't think anything's wrong with that. I think when protesting turns into racial harassment and rioting and setting things on fire, and, when, protesting turns into this issue where it pulls innocent police officers in and harasses them, I think that's when protesting starts to look crazy, Nikki, for lack of a better word. Why are they acting that way? Again, I think we need to go back to the social bond theory. Are the people who are rioting, did they grow up in a society where they were socially bonded to pro-social things, church, family, donating, volunteer work, parents who promoted pro-social behaviors? Were they developed in those kind of environments? And if they were not, then that explains exactly why they're rioting and acting the way that they are. We also can't forget the inner containment theory that I talked about, right? What did they internalize, these people who are rioting and threatening innocent police officers, right? Catching police cars on fire and spraying graffiti all over their cars. How should we see them, right? Well, inner containment theory, right? What did they internalize growing up? By the government, by the world, by police, by law enforcement. So I think a lot of these people, and these look like really young kids too, guys. I'm talking like 17, 18, 19, maybe 22, 23. The ones who are rioting, they really look angry. We have to take a little bit of a compassionate, view of them, because they obviously do not have the tools to really speak out. And that is the issue. Okay. That is the issue. Let me get to some of these comments, guys. Angela Martin. Oh my goodness. Hi. I'm like, who is this? I'm going to say, hi, thanks for coming. Ashley Williams, I'm here in Georgia. The protests downtown were a lot of people that seemed like they weren't even from here. I think they were dropped off or something. Well, you know what, Ashley, I'm going to say good point, because in my state, I live in Pennsylvania. There were some people who literally were coming in droves, okay, through the Greyhound bus station, through the airport. And I can't remember exactly what day. They were not from here, but they were coming here to protest. And how do I know that? I was traveling that day. And I'm like, what? I'm like looking at these like droves of people like near buses and like, like being transported around. And the airport area was like completely crowded. And I'm like, what is this? I honestly do think, Ashley, that these were people coming in droves that wanted to actually protest. I think people who organize protests, which tend to happen in undercurrent ways. Okay, so protests, in case you guys don't know, are organized under the radar, usually on online forums, usually in Facebook groups, usually in small communities. And they build, right? They start small and they build and they build and they build and they build. And they have a strategic place that they want to go. So I once, as a psychology student, so I studied both psychology and forensic science and forensic law / forensic law in college and graduate school. So I graduated with 2 degrees. My forensic science degree put me in an environment for my internship where I had to watch how protests are made. That was the coolest internship ever. And I sat in the back of a room of a group of people who were trying to organize a protest. And there were at least 45 people there. And, they honestly have like diagrams. They have maps to show you where they're going to walk, where they're going to move, what area that they're going to go to during the protest. They also know how to separate and then come back together as a group. Like, they are really strategic, okay? And it's usually a person with a really good brain that is at the head of that. And they know how to stimulate you to want to do the protest. And sometimes those protests involve travel. And sometimes those people get funds to travel. So Ashley, you're right. I don't want to get too far into this because you guys are really blowing up the stream. I want to be able to comment. But protesting can get really deep and really complicated. And I think that's why it looks like some people may come from different, states, different counties. I really do think they do. Thank you for that, Ashley. That was a good point. Let me go back here. Ashley says they seem fake even. Well, I don't really, I don't disagree. I mean, some of them are fake, right? Because I think some of them are very motivated by deviance, and they see a protesting group, they want to be a part of it. And, these are not all people who have internalized good values. Some of these are people who have internalized deviance, and they have no social bonds. And so, they want to be a part of a protest. So they're going to be fake. Supernova says, I've done a lot of consultations. Unfortunately, they were all white. So I have often been isolated. However, I really appreciate your feedback. Very real. Thank you. You're welcome, Supernova. Thank you so much for being on the channel. If you ever need to consult with me, feel free to email me. You can actually go to my website, anchoredinKnowledge.com, and you can contact me on there. But you can also contact me by email at contact@anchoredinKnowledge.com, and I'll put that in the description box below for you. If you ever need to consult with anybody, you definitely can consult with me. I do consultations internationally, legally, thankfully. So feel free to reach out. Let's see here, guys. Okay, stay balanced. Nikki, your question shows that you don't know what it's like to have your own people killed. Your question speaks from privilege. Okay, so let me address that. Stay balanced. So there's a book, and I don't know if I can Google it. I'm going to see if I can Google it and show it to you. So there's a book called White Privilege, and it is by one of my colleagues. I was invited 2 years ago to be interviewed by an international group of multicultural therapists. And during that interview, the author of White Privilege was invited on that show as well. And so, or on that interview or conference platform, I should say. And so the book Excuse me, I will make sure that I will bring some water next time. But let's see here. There's a book called White Privilege by, it's Robin, I can't think of her name. It's White Fragility. I'm so sorry. Scratch what I just said. It's White Fragility, and it's by Robin D'Angelo. And I'm going to find it on Amazon. I'm going to put this in the description box for you as well. Here we go. Let's see if you can see it. Oh man, I'm like really bad at this kind of stuff. Okay, so the book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I have the book. It's a great book. It talks about the internalization of white privilege and just the simple fact that your skin color is a few shades lighter than one person can mean that you have an inherent privilege. It is a privilege that is automatically given to you at birth, right? Your shades are lighter, and so it's a privilege that you are given from the moment that you were born. It's not that you've done anything great to earn that privilege. It's not that you have more money than the next person. It's just that racism and discrimination and prejudice has been built into our institutions. And so because of that, the foundations of our institutions have been built up from the ground, and racism and segregation and discrimination is a part of that building of institutions in this country. And so because of that, the moment you're born, your privilege says, boom, there you go, you're privileged. And so every way that you see the world, whether you come from a poor family or a rich family, the way that you see the world, the way that the world responds to you is always going to be different. It's always going to be imbalanced no matter what. And I learned that, right? Just being in relationships with people from the opposite race, my boyfriends, my family, my friends, right? There's an inherent difference, and there's a power differential. I'm down here, you're here, not because you're any better, but because institutions have built in privilege that you get a chance to have. And so that's what Stay Balanced is trying to say. I believe Stay Balanced, correct me if I'm wrong. Ashley, yes, I saw a bunch of new people at the grocery store and they weren't from here. Yep. Robert, thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. He says racial fantasy. I'm going to say, Nikki, it's okay to share your view. Okay, that's why I am doing this. Okay, so, Nikki, you made a statement. Stay Balanced wanted to correct it. That is totally fine. That's why I'm doing this, so that you have a voice, Stay Balanced has a voice, and anybody else has a voice that needs this platform, okay? So, Nikki, it's okay that you said what you said. It gives us an opportunity to address it. It gives us an opportunity to talk about it, discuss it, okay? So, there are two individuals who theorized that deviance is often rationalized, okay? Deviance is often rationalized by individuals who are racist, prejudiced, discriminatory, and limited. Thank you, Stay Balanced. I'm just going to cut into what I'm saying here. I'm going to say, thank you so much, Stay Balanced, for that. Okay, Stay Balanced says asking questions is important. There you go. That's what we're trying to do today. Ask questions, share opinions, share views, learn, educate ourselves. Okay, so there's this theory that was created by two individuals, Sykes and Matza. I'm going to put them in the description box below for you. And their theory was this, that when you're in a racist, prejudiced group, when you're in a group that's discriminatory, when you're in a group that has groupthink, right? The other mentality, it becomes rationalized and it becomes neutralized. Okay. And rationalized and neutralized means this, that I know it's wrong inherently, but I've rationalized it, I've neutralized it, and I have found a way to make it acceptable. And so I'm not racist, I'm not prejudiced, I'm not discriminatory, because I've neutralized it. I've neutralized everything that you people out there say is racist and discriminatory and prejudiced. So, hey, I'm not racist. There's no issue with it. And I totally disagree with that. And so did Sykes and Matza. They said, no, you're not getting away with that. You're not going to minimize and downplay that you have a very rigid and limited point of view. You're not going to neutralize that. You're going to look at it for what it is. And normalizing something doesn't mean it's normal. And, I have a lot of family members way down, guys. Keep that in mind, way down in my family tree that are prejudiced. And they're white, they are Native American heritage, and they're African American, and they're very prejudiced. They don't know how to open their heart. It hasn't been internalized in our containment theory, guys. It hasn't been internalized, and so they have this view that's rigid and limited. 100%, and it's despicable. I have no communication with them just for that reason. But with this theory of neutralization, or the theory of rationalizing rigid beliefs, there's an idea that prejudice is normalized, discrimination is normalized, right? There's no flexible suggestions. There's no flexible mindsets, right? It's rigid. And they believe that, if I just rationalize and neutralize racism and discrimination, I think I'm okay. I can say I'm not racist because I've normalized it. I've made it normal. So Sykes and Matza basically said this, and I have it on my notes down here, guys. They suggested that deviance is normalized by these 5 things. Okay. One is denial of responsibility. I'm going to deny that I'm responsible for what's going on in society. I'm going to make sure that I say I'm not responsible. That problem is your problem. It's not mine. So they are neutralizing individuals who are rigid, prejudiced, racist, discriminatory, minimizing. They neutralize and normalize and minimize what they are doing by, number 1, denying responsibility. That's your problem. The next thing is they deny injury. They deny doing anything wrong. They don't feel that they've done anything wrong. They just don't. I once had an individual from Canada about maybe 5 years ago contact me, and it was a pretty ugly conversation. I mean, it was one-sided. It was him talking most of the time, and he was talking about how prejudiced he is and how proud he was to be that way. He really had no compassion for other people, and he wasn't prejudiced against people of color. He was prejudiced, or African Americans or anything. He was prejudiced against the Asian and Chinese culture, and the Filipino culture as well. And he spoke very proudly, I can say, about his position. And what he was doing during that whole conversation was neutralizing and normalizing. He was denying injury. He was denying responsibility. Okay, the next thing, guys, is denial of victimization. I'm going to deny that I have caused somebody else to be a victim. All right, that's number 3. Number 4 is condemnation of those who point them out. So people who are minimizing and limited. I'm going to get to your questions and comments, guys. Thank you so much for your participation. It is helpful on this channel. So condemnation happens with individual neutralize what ugly that they have done, right? So they condemn the other, right? So, oh my God, you're protesting. Don't ever do that again, because protesting makes you look like a fool. That was a comment that I got on my YouTube channel about 2 days ago. The comment was, "Hey Tamara, I love your channel. I love you, but I hate the fact that your people." And well, she said half of your people, because she knows I'm multi-ethnic. She says, "are protesting. It's really sickening, and I'm tired of this BS. So I won't be back on your channel." And I'm like, okay, great, thanks. I mean, I'm not offended by that. I understand this stuff way too well to be offended by you. So, but I think her comment was pretty uppity, and it was like, I'm going to condemn the protesters for sticking up for themselves, the good ones, guys. I'm going to condemn them, because I want to neutralize what my people have done. And so that's kind of her attitude. And hopefully she finds the truth and she changes. And the final thing, guys, is belief their deviance serves a greater purpose. So what Sykes and Matza basically is getting at here is, I'm sorry, guys, I'm being paged. Basically, we're going to end here in 8 minutes. So, but Sykes and Matza basically said this, look, that, trying to minimize deviance and trying to say that you're okay with something just because you feel that you are helping your group of people, just because you feel that you are helping this superior mindset of privilege, doesn't mean that you're okay. It means you're neutralizing. You're saying, I'm just going to say that I'm doing this for my group of people, right? And we're talking about prejudice, racist, discriminatory people. I'm just going to do this for my group of people because we're not prejudiced. That kind of disposition says I'm privileged and I'm going to stick by this no matter what. So a belief that you are standing up for your rights sometimes can show that you are neutralizing and rationalizing. All right, so let me answer some of these, guys, and we are definitely going to go ahead and get into Corona because I want to talk a little bit about that. There's some theories that we need to talk about there, and then we're going to wrap up. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being in the comment section. Thank you, Jojo, for posing this question. And she says to Ashley, were the protests that seemed fake violent? I can't think of a reason to fake them besides to make the real ones seem violent. Absolutely, Jojo. You hit the nail on the head. And I think that's what was happening right here in Pennsylvania where I live. I think that was basically the point, to make things look more violent than they really are. Slim Dusty says, yes, privilege is real. As someone who was born into a cult, I can soon see that other people who were privileged to not be. Yeah, I like that. Very well put. Yes, Supernova. Justifying racism is denial and delusion. Very, very much agree. I'm going to keep going here. I don't want to skip over your awesome comments. I like what Stay Balanced says here. This person says looting and destruction are not motivated by justice for police brutality and should not be confused for people wanting to stop police killing. Absolutely. So we should not confuse violent behavior with people who really want to see change and who are protesting. Absolutely. Okay, let's keep going here, guys, because we're running out of time. Ashley says, Jojo, it was fake. Yeah, I believe that. Absolutely. Stay Balanced says, thanks for the and creating the conversation with different points of view. We need diversity. Absolutely. I don't know if I can type anymore, guys. I don't know. My computer may have frozen. Okay, here we go. I spelled this wrong. Absolutely Stay Balanced. Thank you. Yes, Supernova 26. I can share the name of Sykes and Matza, SYKS, and Matza is MATZA, and the study was done in 1957. Okay, and I'm going to put that down in the description box with all the information that you need. They're awesome. Okay, so let's keep going here, guys. So my computer is like, nope, I'm done. I am so done with you clicking me. So it's freezing up, guys. So let me just go ahead and jump into Corona really quickly. We're at 7:25. So believe it or not, Corona is basically, I won't point out Corona because it's so new. I'm going to say health and sickness over the duration. That Corona most likely was something that was grabbed at and used by fearmongers to kind of stretch and pull and exaggerate and make things feel just a little more serious than they actually were. And so health and sickness basically has a cultural foundation. Okay, I think human beings have a cultural obsession with health and wellness and health and fitness and health and sickness, right? We all have this theory that We have to look our best. We have to feel our best. We have to stay safe. We have to carry this around all the time, right? We have to make sure that we are up on things. And that is well, that is great. That is wonderful. It's self-care. It's self-preservation. The issue is when the cultural obsession of health and wellness goes over the line and becomes anorexia, becomes bulimia, becomes fear-mongering by fear-mongerers, people who want to grab at something and take it and stretch it and exaggerate it. There's a lot of my clients who have come to me and said, you know what, Tamara, I really do feel like the media is stretching Corona and it's making it 10 times worse than it actually needs to be. Do I agree? Absolutely, 100%, totally agree. I think there are a combination of media outlets who have contributed to the huge fear. And I also think the drastic moves of our mayors, of the president, the conferences, the multiple conferences, the daily conferences, the news on the internet, all of that kind of exaggerates and stretches and pulls it and makes it look bigger than it actually is. And it causes a general fear of other people. It causes a general fear of society. On this channel, I've gotten people write into me and they say, you know what, protesters need to sit down. That's exactly the words somebody used, because they are spreading Corona. And while that may be true, I did see a lot of educated protesters with masks on, thankfully. But do I think Corona has been stretched to kind of make things seem a little bit worse than it is? Perhaps. I don't put it past the media to do those kind of things. They've done it for centuries. I do talk about, basically this topic on the channel. So I'll go ahead and play this back later when I go back and screen it. Debilitation. Okay. The fear of chronic debilitation, Corona, any kind of disease, really can lead to what's known as acute and chronic stress. And I talk a lot in the videos that I'm going to post in the description box a little bit later today about the acute and the chronic stress process. I talk about the gas pedal and the brake pedal, which are a part of the autonomic nervous system. It's the fight or flight stress response. And I think that gets triggered when we watch the media, when we hear about Corona, right? We have a general fear of chronic debilitation, and that creates a major issue. So let me just give you a few things, guys, and I'm going to wrap up here. We're at 7:29. I think that there are a variety of things that we can do to cope with all of this, okay? And I'm going to answer a few comments, and then we're going to wrap up. I think there are a couple of ways that we can deal with this, and I think that these are awesome alternative tools for dealing with and managing acute stress, okay? I think music therapy is helpful. There's a ton of research studies that says, you know what, music therapy actually can get to nerve pathways in the brain and in the body, and it can actually slow down the fight or flight mode. So music therapy, and I'm actually going to do a video about this coming up, so stay tuned for that video, and I'll explain to you why this is helpful. Music therapy is one. I have on my note here, creative writing is another thing, okay? Creative writing really gets to the heart of what's going on with you. You get a chance to put your thoughts on paper, and then you also get a chance to become the observer, right? As a therapist, I'm the observer. I don't always give you tools. I don't always give you education. Sometimes I just sit back and I observe your thoughts, your feelings, and what you're telling me. So when you write something down in a journal, in a diary, if you do creative poetry, if you do flowetry, I think there's a such thing as that, which is kind of like a form of rap, but it's poetic. You're really becoming the observer when you go back and reread it. That's really what you're becoming for yourself. There's dance and movement therapy that's helpful. There's biblically based theories that are helpful, right? It takes the Bible and it pulls it apart and says, here's how it relates to you in 2020. There's cognitive behavior therapy. I talk a lot about this on this channel. I'm going to post it in the description box below, so you can go ahead and look at those videos. There's self-learning. I'm a huge fan of self-learning. I think that we should not rely on the educational system to teach us everything that we know. And I also think we should not rely on the media to teach us everything we know. We need to get off of Google. Don't look at Google so much. Go get some books. Go to the library. Go to the Library of Congress and really get in those books and learn and figure out what's going on and what your mind needs to know. Give your mind what it needs to know. Support groups are also helpful, guys. Getting into groups like our live conversations here. I think these are helpful. I hope they are helpful. They're helpful for me when I tune into stuff like this. this. And last but not least, another way to deal with this would be exposure, exposing yourself. My practice is so multi-ethnic, guys. It's not funny. My practice is so entrenched in dealing with everybody. And it's not segregating. It just, I don't say, nope, you're the wrong race, get out, or you're the wrong age. It really is, everybody is welcome to my practice. So I think exposure is huge. It is huge. You have to expose yourself to the other group so that you can understand that they are very much like you. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this live YouTube. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at a couple comments really quickly. I'm going to go back. Let's see, guys. Robert's like laughing at what's going on in the exchange here. There's a comment that was held for review. I will look at that later. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. This was Supernova. You're so welcome. Supernova 26. That used to be my kitty name that I gave myself when I was about 10 years old. Supernova. I don't know. Millions are out of work, but there is no focus on these people's loss of livelihoods. Businesses have been ruined. This way, hedge funds can go in and buy property cheap after people lose their homes. Oh my God, Ashley. So true. And thank you so much for pointing that out. And she's talking about what Corona has done. So I'm going to say a great point, Ashley. Thank you. Fantastic point. When Corona hit, it had a huge political impact on us. And I think there's more to the story here. We're not able to see all of what's hidden right now because it's so new to all of us. Okay, so, you guys are so great. If you want to continue to have the conversation, stay in the live chat box. Thank you so much for being with me once again, guys. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around with us. And please share this with someone if you think it would be helpful. Let me know what live event that you want me to do. I'm going to do another one in September, so stick around for that. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.